Even though Kyle Lowry did not play a single NBA playoff game this season, he has still seen his trade value rise a lot more than most, leading him to be one of the hottest free agents on the market in the NBA. So in this video, we're going to uncover just how Kyle Lowry managed to do this. Let's get into it. Welcome NBA and Raptors fans to Amateur Hour Sports. This is a channel where you get NBA content with a focus on the Toronto Raptors at least 4 days a week. That is Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. This is your Friday episode. We were talking about Kyle Lowry and how he has gotten his trade value to rise so much even without playing in the playoffs. So if you like what you see from today's video and want more of myself talking about the NBA and the Raptors and videos and content just like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to show your support to the channel on a road to 5,000 subscribers. We're getting very close to 4.4K on that road to 5,000. When we hit that 5,000 milestone, I will shave my head again. So you can speed the process and help us get there by joining the Amateur Hour Army. But let's get down to business for today. We're talking about Kyle Lowry and how he has gotten his trade stock to rise so much even without playing in the NBA playoffs this season. Also, not really playing after the NBA trade deadline. And that was a pretty weird NBA trade deadline for Raptors fans because that saw the end of Norman Powell as a Toronto Raptor. And we really thought that Kyle Lowry would follow suit and would get traded on trade deadline day because there was three teams who were lurking and really wanted to trade for him. The Miami Heat, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Philadelphia 76ers all expressed extreme interest in Kyle Lowry, and every sign pointed at Kyle Lowry leaving on trade deadline day. In fact, the game before trade deadline day, Kyle Lowry was seen walking off the court crying, thinking that his Raptors career was over, but obviously nothing materialized. And when we were waiting for a trade to happen, we saw that Terrence Davis and Matt Thomas both got traded for a second-round pick respectively. It seemed that a trade for Lowry was imminent, but nothing happened. Nothing happened for Kyle Lowry on trade deadline day. And many media outlets, as well as other teams to speculate that Kyle Lowry's valuation by Masai Ujiri was set far too high for a trade to happen. And that kind of makes a little bit of sense that maybe Masai overvalued this player. But then you look at the situation that we have at hand and think that, well, maybe Masai Ujiri was right about this player being extremely valuable to a franchise. So for starters, let's get into Kyle Lowry's stats over the course of this season. Obviously, didn't play a lot after the trade deadline, but still poised some terrific stats over the 46 games that he played and started this season. Because Kyle Lowry put up 17 points per game. In fact, over 17 points per game on some pretty efficient shooting, I might say. 43.6% shooting from the field, as well as almost 40% shooting from three. By Kyle Lowry's standards, by his standards of height and how much he shoots the three ball, that's pretty damn good. In fact, that is better than most years for Kyle Lowry. So you'd say this was a great season for Kyle Lowry based on the games that he did play in. Then you add in the fact that he's averaging over 7 assists per game and over 5 rebounds per game, only at 6 feet tall, leads to a great season for Kyle Lowry. In fact, this is one season where if he had played the entire thing at this level, he might have been in some All-NBA discussions, but definitely wouldn't have been because of the Raptors' record season. But regardless, Kyle Lowry showcased some good statistics here, but again, didn't play for a lot of the second half of the season, didn't play a single NBA playoff game because NBA playoffs is where players really can build their stock, how much they're worth in the open market or how much they're worth for a potential trade, whether it be realistic or not. And the two players for me who have really stuck out as guys who have done that, just to name a couple, are DeAndre Ayton, who has been monumental in the Suns' run to the final. His playoff season is still ongoing, and also Reggie Jackson, making virtual peanuts compared to other players in the NBA. He played out of his mind in the playoffs to help get the Clippers to the conference finals where they ultimately went down, but not at his fault. He was terrific. And as a guy who almost gave up basketball, he's going to be getting the bag in the offseason. But that's because they played really well in the playoffs for Ayton and Reggie Jackson. But for Kyle Lowry, we don't have that play to really represent why his valuation has increased, but we really can get the valuation based on the teams who chose not to trade for this player, being the Miami Heat, the Los Angeles Lakers, and the Philadelphia 76ers. Because looking at this team, their struggles can boil down to certain things. So let's start with the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat did not have enough help for Jimmy Butler, and to be honest, Jimmy Butler was very underwhelming in this series, where they went down quite easily to the Milwaukee Bucks. In fact, in that series, Jimmy Butler had a combined point total across the series less than Bryn Forbes. So not a good look for Jimmy Butler, but A guy who definitely could have helped out Jimmy with his point total, and also the entire team making the team better, elevating the performance of the team, was Kyle Lowry. And the Miami Heat at the deadline chose to not trade Tyler Hero. Now, I don't think this is a regrettable decision by the Miami Heat, but I am going to point out the fact that Kyle Lowry being there for that season would have significantly altered that series. I think the Miami Heat had a great chance in that series, even without Kyle Lowry. Adding him in makes it a very good opportunity for the Miami Heat to progress. Now, they kept on to Tyler Hero, who has been deemed a bubble fraud since then because he has been very poor by his standards this season. And, obviously as a very young player, you can turn that around. I don't think the Miami Heat are regretting this one too much, but they probably would have wanted a Kyle Lowry for this playoff run. And they are definitely, I think, the favorites to land him this summer because Kyle Lowry is obviously becoming a free agent. Then you look at the Los Angeles Lakers, who right after the trade deadline ran into some injury troubles. AD was riddled with injuries this season. LeBron had his fair share of games where he was not playing. So the Lakers had to rely on the likes of Dennis Schroeder and maybe guys like Kyle Kuzma and KCP to carry the load. And who better to have carried the load than Kyle Lowry? When those injuries piled up, Kyle Lowry certainly would have kept this team afloat and would have been able to help them avoid that play-in game. Now, ultimately, they won the play-in game, but because they were in that position, they had such a difficult first-round matchup. AD wasn't fully healthy, and LeBron could not do it on his own. But Kyle Lowry certainly would have helped this Lakers team, especially given the fact that he produced one of the best performances of his career against them near the end of the regular season. And knowing all this about what Kyle Lowry could have done for the Lakers, when the Lakers decided that Talen Horton-Tucker was too high of an asking price to send the other way, it just seemed a little bit silly on the Lakers front office. But then we go to the Philadelphia 76ers, I think, who missed out on this one the most, who regret this one the most, because their playoff series against the Atlanta Hawks really boils down to their point guard not performing up to scratch. Ben Simmons only took 3 field goal attempts in fourth quarters of that 7-game series. He made all 3, but the free throws, the fact that he could not hit free throws, the fact that he could not hit jump shots made him virtually unusable for this Philadelphia 76ers team. Now, Ben Simmons still would have been there if they had made a trade for Kyle Lowry. They were asking for some young players. They were asking for guys like Matisse Thybulle, maybe Shake Milton, maybe Tyrese Maxey. I think they were asking for 2 of those players and maybe some picks. That's a high asking price, but looking at this Philadelphia 76ers team, looking at how talented they are, looking at what they are missing, it is the pure point guard, that floor general who you can rely on in big moments, and you can certainly rely on Kyle Lowry in big moments. Comparing Kyle Lowry over the last 7 seasons before this one and his playoff performances compared to some of what we call the best playoff performers in the NBA, Kyle Lowry stands alone at the top of these 10 players. Now, this isn't just a total stats, but comparing him to 9 guys we consider some of the biggest players in the NBA, some of the most clutch players in the NBA, especially over the last decade, Kyle Lowry showcased his big game potential, and the Philadelphia 76ers 1,000,000% lacked this. And now we're looking at a wide open Eastern Conference where the Milwaukee Bucks got to the final, where they're playing the Phoenix Suns. Who saw that coming? This was the perfect opportunity for the Philadelphia 76ers to make a run for that championship, make a win-now trade to tinker their lineup. Maybe it would sacrifice some future, but a win-now trade to push them over the line was necessary for this team. Daryl Morey didn't realize it, and because of that, the Sixers fall in the second round to the 5-seed Atlanta Hawks. So the situation regarding Kyle Lowry's value doesn't come from Kyle Lowry's great performances. Now, certainly Kyle Lowry played well this season, and I showcased that with the per game graphic that I showed you guys earlier, but the valuation of Kyle Lowry comes down to showcasing the teams that missed out on this player, because we saw the Lakers and Miami Heat fall in the first round. The Miami Heat fell quite embarrassingly in the first round. Then you go to the Philadelphia 76ers, who fall in the second round to a 5-seed Atlanta Hawks. I might say it was quite embarrassingly as well in that Game 7, especially for a player like Ben Simmons, the way he performed in that series. We have really seen not just what Kyle Lowry is valued at, but we have seriously seen what he can do to change a team. We can seriously see what you are missing. There is a missing puzzle piece for all 3 of these teams, in my opinion, and Kyle Lowry would have perfectly slot into that position to fill out the roster and push them over the line to be true competitors for an NBA championship. Now, Miami maybe would have been a little bit more on the outside looking in, but I think that for the Lakers and for the 76ers, this has to be a missed opportunity, especially for the Philadelphia 76ers, looking at the way the playoffs transpired. They wouldn't have had to play the Brooklyn Nets, and I think that they had the size to match up really well with the Milwaukee Bucks, especially if Kyle Lowry was available to help them out in that series. The Philadelphia 76ers definitely looking at this one like a regrettable decision. I think that there's going to be a lot of teams now understanding the valuation that Masai Ujiri has held for this player. Now, the problem with this valuation is that, well, Kyle Lowry is a free agent. He made $30 million last season. He's probably going to be asking for about $25 million this season. Maybe he'll take a cut price deal and just go about 20, but I doubt it. I think Kyle Lowry is even understanding that his value is up there. He's probably going to be asking for about $25 million. Now, the problem now, again, Masai Ujiri didn't trade at the deadline. We now have a free agent on our hands. Do we let him walk? Is it possible to construct a sign and trade situation? Now, because the value of Kyle Lowry's contract, I think that if you're trading him, you are sending him to a contender. And these contenders are typically pretty locked up in terms of their salary cap. So a sign and trade is absolutely possible. And understanding the situation now, the value that Kyle Lowry has and the value that he can add to your team, I don't think that a lot of these teams like the Lakers, the Heat, and the Sixers are going to be wanting to make that mistake again. They don't want to repeat the era of last season where the wide open conferences and you could have made a serious run for a championship. And I think that Kyle Lowry was truly that missing part for some of these teams. It seems quite ridiculous to think now what the situation is for these teams compared to where it was in March at trade deadline day. Thinking about the position these teams are in and how they really need to reconstruct and retool their rosters to really make a run compared to then where they thought, oh, we have all the pieces necessary. Tyler Hero is too much. Talen Horton-Tucker is too much. Matisse Thybulle and Tyrese Maxey, that's too much for Kyle Lowry. But it was Masai Ujiri all along who knew this valuation was in place and knew that these teams needed to add in a player like Kyle Lowry. And he recognized the fact that, well, they aren't really built for that championship if they don't make this trade. And they are going to realize that whether it be today and make the trade, this is back on trade deadline day, or they're going to realize it later. We are now in the later situation. I truly believe that these three teams are understanding the decision that they made at the deadline. They're understanding the fact that they were that one piece away. And if they wanted to find that piece, they needed to meet the valuation of the player. Kyle Lowry has done a great job by doing absolutely nothing. Kyle Lowry has showcased this playoff season without even playing a single game why his value has grown more than any player in the NBA, why he is going to be one of the hottest free agents, and a lot of teams are going to be queuing up to provide a sign and trade negotiation with Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, and the rest of the Toronto Raptors. So what do you guys make of Kyle Lowry's trade stock? Do you think it has grown the way I'm describing it? Let me know all of your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that wraps up for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you are still here, be sure to hit that like button. If you did enjoy the video at any point, really goes a long way to helping the channel with that YouTube algorithm, bringing in new viewers to the channel. Also showcase to me that you made it to the end of the video. Check out our Twitch, twitch.tv/amateursports. We're doing a ton of video game and NBA content. You can check it out with the link in the description. Subscribe to the channel on a road to 5,000 subscribers. You can help us get there by subscribing. Other videos by the channel you may enjoy. And always remember, at the end of the day, believe what I say. If you disagree, that is okay. Enjoy the grind, and I'll see you again next time for another video.